this doesn't look like a mainstream series. This is not a conventional main character. This anime's source material is weird and violent. Its plot and pacing is all over the place, and its core cast is so fluid, you could almost mistake most characters for being underdeveloped. Chainsaw Man is going to air very soon, and I don't think audiences are really prepared for what that means. There are so many eyes on this series, and a lot of people are coming into it with incredibly high expectations because of the great reception the source material has received. And look, I love the original manga, but I don't know if this many millions of people will. Hype is just weird, in particular among anime fans. I mean, it seems like most these days don't even know how to express when they don't like a series using more than 3 letters. Mid-anime, One Piece better! Mid-anime! Okay, look, I'm not the biggest My Hero Academia or Demon Slayer fan, but calling these series mid seems bizarre to me. I can still sort of remember when the biggest anime of a season wasn't always that great or nice looking. Also, the Chainsaw Man manga started as a sleeper hit. People would talk about this story like another Blam or Gantz. Like, yeah, you should totally check it out, but it's kind of weird, and it's a bit ugly. It all felt very underground. Something you'd find in a secondhand shop, or as a reaction image on an online forum, not plastered on the front page of Shonen Jump. But something changed when Studio Mappa dropped their first trailer for it over a year ago. Some bigger creators started to talk about Chainsaw Man, and memes about the series really started to take over. It's a hell of a trailer, and the new one also looks incredible. But highly polished animation and a killer soundtrack can't change the fact that Tatsuki Fujimoto is a weird person. I think he has made a series that strays pretty far from conventional story tropes, and it's messy. But I'm also really glad it exists. So I'm going to talk about what makes it interesting with minimal spoilers. If that sounds like it might interest you, stick around. Chainsaw Man's story follows a young boy named Denji, and the decision to follow this character as the series lead is weird for a few reasons. Denji is strange as far as main characters go. He's fairly empty. Because of his upbringing, or lack of one, he's not terribly smart or aspirational, 2 traits typically found in your average run-of-the-mill shonen hero. His goals start off more like needs. He needs food, and a shelter, and time to spend with his pet chainsaw dog. You know, relatable stuff. Alright, here's your first incredibly mild, chapter 1 of the manga. It's the name of the show, spoiler. After a very unlucky meeting with a lot of guys with knives, and some really direct contact with those knives, Denji is introduced to a new home in the form of a dumpster, and he's really broken up by this whole experience. After pretty much dying in the worst, most unbelievably gruesome way possible, and gore warnings for this video from this point forward, because it's not getting much better from here, Denji fuses with his pet demon chainsaw dog to become Chainsaw Man, a monster, half-human, half-chainsaw hybrid who rips and tears through other demons like he's playing a game of Doom. Using these newfound powers, Denji agrees to, or is kind of forced to become, a professional devil hunter. He's not that interested in the title, but hey, he can get some slices of toast out of the deal, and that beats starving. Like I said before, he's pretty simple. You know that one meme going around about Luffy from One Piece overthrowing governments for people for the price of a McChicken meal? Yeah, Denji would do it for the last fry in the bottom of the bag. He does start to develop one goal, but it's not terribly noble. That's your titular character in a nutshell. He's down bad and has a chainsaw for a head. That's about all I can say about him without getting into actual spoilers. So let's talk about something else. This manga's premise is weird for sure, but a lot of manga and anime pitches are just as weird or violent. We're living in a world where Attack on Titan has been a mainstream international success for almost 10 years. When was the last time you heard someone even question that statement? Despite the fact that this series started as naked giants eating people and ran with that premise for multiple seasons. Instead of Titans, Chainsaw Man's primary antagonists are devils. Not the devil, singular, but devils plural, as in there's a new one in this series almost every chapter, and they provide a good excuse for Fujimoto to draw some cool monsters, which is something he's really good at. This is a tomato devil, featured in the first chapter of the manga. He's a representation of the fear in this universe people have for tomatoes. That's how devils work in Chainsaw Man. The scarier a concept is to society at large, the more powerful and scary the devil. Now this tomato monstrosity isn't that strong and is taken out pretty easily, which makes sense because who's really afraid of tomatoes other than people from Chicago?
Respectfully,
This encounter and a few early conversations between characters set up the basic rules for the series. A bat devil is pretty strong. That makes sense. Bats can be scary sometimes. He's on me! What about a muscle devil? That's weird, but okay, I guess. Gym bros can be intimidating. This concept is constantly being called into question because Fujimoto chooses some really off-the-wall concepts to be the devils encountered in the series. And which devil is stronger sometimes feels a little off. With each new devil, you start to ask silly, unanswerable questions like, are people more scared of leeches or foxes? Or why is the cockroach devil as tall as a skyscraper, but a spider devil is fairly close to human-sized? The answer to those questions just might be that Fujimoto is making things up as he goes along, and that maybe he designs each devil with the scene it appears in mind first, not whether it fits into some kind of shonen power system with strict rules and rankings. The result is usually a game of can a chainsaw cut through this or that, and this style of writing certainly makes for some interesting conflicts. Now, this loose sort of storytelling might rub people the wrong way, but I personally don't mind it. Not everything in a fictional world needs to be explained, and Chainsaw Man's world is just defined enough for an audience not to get lost while leaving room for some crazy late story revelations that I'm not even going to get into or hint at, but trust me, things get weird in some really cool ways. So I've been tiptoeing around spoilers this whole video, and unfortunately I feel like I should keep doing that, even though I'm really bad at dancing. I don't really want to ruin anyone's first experience with Chainsaw Man, so that means I can't really talk about this or this without giving spoilers. So I guess I'm gonna ramble about the characters for a few minutes, and we'll call it quits for now. We've already discussed how batshit insane this series can be, so you might be surprised to hear that I think Chainsaw Man's cast is really grounded and realistic, with a few obvious exceptions. Almost everyone in Fujimoto's universe treats the world deadly serious, despite how utterly absurd of a world it is. The various devil hunters met throughout the series have to contend with monsters straight out of Junji Ito stories on a day-to-day basis, and conventional anime storytelling might make you assume this process turns these characters into hardened badasses, but it usually doesn't, and they aren't. The human characters in this story tackle things in human ways. They can be cowardly, selfish, desperate, and most importantly, full of regrets. The Devil Hunter organization is full of younger adults because most devil hunters quit or die before reaching middle age. Anyone who manages to live a bit longer carries the weight of many dead comrades, and that weight is a heavy burden. Chainsaw Man is far from the first series to tackle these ideas, but I think it does it with an unusual neutrality. Anyone in Chainsaw Man's world has the capacity to be a main character, because being a main character in this world doesn't mean much. Anyone can die without warning. It's rare, but sometimes Fujimoto will shift the focus of the series away from Denji and the other core cast members, and instead peek into the lives of very minor players in the story. And these smaller episodic moments are some of my favorite bits in the story. This guy knows how to pack a scene full of emotion, and to do so economically, using only a few lines and panel compositions. Now what about the main cast? Well, they are also great for reasons I don't want want to spoil, but one thing I can say is that Fujimoto spends a lot of time exploring each character's convictions. Why a character does what they do is almost more important than whether or not they succeed, provided they have an impact on Denji, who is this emotionally stunted sponge slowly absorbing the best and worst traits of those around him. I've already mentioned how Denji starts with some pretty shallow goals and a very narrow understanding of the world, and, well, you've seen a story or two. He obviously cannot stay like this forever, but it's a slow process, and a strange one. You're not getting traditional training and tournament arcs here. They wouldn't really fit anyway. Not with this cast, in this world, with this lead. Chainsaw Man marches to a beat of a drum only Fujimoto really understands. And it's pretty damn unique. I'm sort of shocked that it has garnered this much mainstream attention already, but maybe I'm not giving audiences enough credit. Sometimes dark, edgy, and weird can succeed. Maybe not this much, but enough to keep teaching the people with the checkbooks the right lessons. Chainsaw Man airs this week. It's going to lose some people on the first episode, some on the first 3, and some between seasons. But those that stick with it are probably in for a good time.